Our life of discipleship can be summed up in one pithy phrase: to begin and to begin again. To begin and to begin again. Welcome to week 3 of our Easter message series called New Beginnings. When Jesus died on the cross, everybody except for Mary thought that his death meant the end and that his mission had come to a tragic failure. But this was not so. Jesus triumphed on the cross and he accomplished our salvation there. And then in his resurrection, he offers everyone who believes in him renewal, transformation, and a new beginning. There's a wonderful little book by Saint Jose Maria Escrivá called The Way. And The Way is really a collection of really short points or points for reflection or prayer. You can kind of think of the book as being like a guidebook for people who want to take their discipleship seriously or to experience greater union with God. Point 292 says this: your interior life has to be just that, to begin and to begin again. Let me read that again. Your interior life, he's talking about your life of discipleship, your faith, your spirituality, really everything. Your interior life has to be just that, to begin and to begin again. Years later, St. Jose Maria was asked why he wrote this particular point, and here's how he responded: because this is my daily experience. I often have to play the role of the prodigal son, beginning again, some days not just once, but often. Don't get disturbed if you have not managed to attain the good you thought you would. Ask the Lord for forgiveness, ask him to help you, and insist to begin and to begin again. Because each of us carries an innate brokenness, which is the result of original sin, we stumble and maybe fall many times. This happens when we do something that we should not do, and it happens when we don't do something that we should do. You've probably heard the saying that saints are not people who never fall, but rather the ones who never fail to get up. Saints are not the people who never fall, but rather the ones who never fail to get up. Beginning again means trusting less in ourselves, who are broken and who are, destined, bound to fall. It means trusting less in ourselves and trusting more in God. God who loves us, God who never fails us, and God who will always pick us up. There is one thing, though, that I think is very helpful in this aspect of living out our faith, and that is having a sense of humor. Specifically, I don't mean to be trite because it's true, specifically the type of sense of humor that allows you to laugh at yourself, so that when you stumble or maybe fall, even if it's again and again, you can laugh at yourself and say, okay, Lord, here I go again, help me more. And believe it or not, that is actually a very good and a very effective prayer. Nonetheless, sometimes we do carry regrets. That is, those feelings of sadness or disappointment or remorse about things that did or did not happen in the past. If we let them, we can let these feelings of remorse keep us down and keep us from moving forward. But if we flip them, by God's grace, they can become springboards for new beginnings. And I think this happens especially when we learn from our mistakes. Thomas Edison tried thousands of experiments before successfully inventing a practical and a commercially viable light bulb. When he was asked about his many failures, he shrugged it off, saying, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work." Similarly, and I just found this out, the basketball great Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. But he used this setback as a motivation to improve his skills, and we all know what he went on to do. Although it has me thinking, I failed to make the freshman basketball team. And I'm thinking if I had stuck with it, maybe I could have been like the best 5'7" point guard in the NBA. Probably not. We gave out this little devotional called Ending the Day Well at Easter. If you didn't get one, we've got a couple that are left by the doors at the back of the church. At the beginning of it, we describe a spiritual practice called the examination of conscience. To practice the examination of conscience fruitfully, all you have to do is look back on your day and then identify one or maybe two things that didn't go so well, and then say to the Lord, "Lord, help me to do better with these things tomorrow." The examination of conscience is a great tool for our spiritual growth. And when you examine your conscience, you examine your life, you not only get to know yourself better, but you get to understand things in your life that impact you differently. For instance, practicing the examination of conscience might lead you to acknowledge that there is perhaps somebody in your life who annoys you and who seems to know how to press each one of your buttons. But just acknowledging that is not the end goal. Really, the end goal is the next step, which is saying to yourself, next time I'm with this person, no matter the cost, I am going to be joyful and patient. And if you do it, there is the new beginning that leads to tremendous spiritual growth and greater happiness. Beginning again and beginning again is a fundamental part of our life of discipleship. It's not just a self-improvement slogan, because whenever we begin, what we really do is we offer to God a new love. Whenever we begin again, we offer to God a new love. In our gospel today, we saw another scene from that first Easter Sunday in Jerusalem. The setting for it is probably very late, because the two disciples at the beginning of the gospel shared how Jesus was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. They had to make the 7-mile walk back from Emmaus when it was already evening. And even though it was late, and in those past couple days they had been through a lot, I'm sure the disciples couldn't sleep as they discussed everything that happened and tried to understand what it meant. Now remember, at this point of the gospel, only a few of Jesus' disciples had actually seen him risen. So most, if not all, probably still carried questions and doubts. I'm sure their emotions were mixed as they considered their failure to stand by Jesus in his hour of need, as they hid in fear behind locked doors from the Jewish authorities, and then as they wondered, well, what's Jesus going to say when he comes to me who has done all these things? That night, however, Jesus did appear to them in that locked room. And the disciples were terrified. They were thinking they had seen a ghost. But Jesus looks at them with all of the love in the world, and he says to them, "Peace be with you." Now, these words were not simply a greeting, but rather Jesus is bringing and giving them peace so that they can experience a new beginning. And that's the same thing that Jesus does for us. When Jesus enters our life, he brings and he gives the peace that we need to experience a new beginning. Then we move on in the gospel, and Jesus does three things to prove it is really him and not a ghost. First, he shows them his wounds, which are really the marks of his love. Second, he invites them to touch his wounds. And then number three, he asks for some food so that they can see him eat. This matters for us because for our faith to have power, we have to really believe that Jesus is not dead, but alive. The disciples had to understand that Jesus Christ was in fact risen from the dead in the flesh. And then the scene ends. The scene ends with Jesus reminding the disciples of everything he said before he died and telling them the role that they are going to play in helping others experience new beginnings by preaching his name to all the nations. And that's what happens. When they receive the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, they will go forth to share his good news with everyone. And by sharing this good news, they're teaching people that by beginning again, they can offer to God a new love. Not just once, but again and again and again. And the mission that Jesus gave them is also the mission that Jesus gives you. You help others experience new beginnings when you share with them the renewal and the transformation that Jesus has worked in your life. So, right now, where in your life can you begin again and offer to God a new love?